Did you try intentionally to mislead voters about your financial situation?
Absolutely not. This obligation had been disclosed all along, both in my federal as well as my state obligation to file a disclosure report. It was always there, and it's not a matured obligation, so it's been there all along, and we have been transparent about it, made it available to the public's knowledge.
Well, the public really didn't know about it, though. I mean, if I'm Karen Handel, I'm thinking if this had been a subject of discussion 6 weeks ago, maybe I'm the Republican nominee. I mean, you only won by a couple thousand votes, right?
Well, that's true. It was a close election. But, you know, there are a lot of folks who have obligations. And the question is, how did they originate? This is one I have made many investments. Fortunately, been able to start several very successful small businesses. Right. This is one that didn't succeed. It was an effort to try to help one of my daughters. She and her husband wanted to start a small business. They did. They worked very hard. They made sacrifices. Like many Georgians who open small businesses, have to work very hard, long hours, give up all of the other things to try to make their business a success. Right. But, like many Georgians as well, a downturned economy made it impossible for them to keep their business open. But I think I understand the pain that not only my family has experienced from that, but the pain that many other Georgians have experienced from similar situations. This is nothing that is unusual. This is the worst economy in about 60 years.
Yeah, but how did you get into a situation where you put almost all of your net worth at risk?
Well, that is a misconception. I did not. I did not put all of my net worth at risk. I have other investments, and fortunately, my family and I have the assets to be able to take care of this obligation. And many Georgians don't have that opportunity to do that, and they're the ones I'm concerned about. And they're the ones that I, as governor, am going to be concerned about every day. People who've lost their jobs, who've lost their businesses, who've lost their homes. I understand what they're going through. My family understands that. And I'll be a governor who will work every day to make sure that every person in Georgia who wants a job is going to be able to get a job.
But what do you say to voters who say, you know, God bless him, Nathan Deal obviously loves his daughter, but this wasn't smart given any economic circumstances, let alone the ones we found ourselves in?
Well, you take 4 years ago, I don't think there was anything that was not smart about opening an outdoor store on a major 4-lane highway headed to the mountains of North Georgia. Mm-hmm. Traffic patterns, everything that you would look at that would say it would succeed was obviously there. A very well thought out business plan, and that's of course what the bank understood, that it was a business that under normal circumstances would have been successful. But we don't live in normal circumstances.
That's true. Are you in negotiations now to pay off that loan for perhaps less than the total amount? I mean, that would be normal under these circumstances.
No. I'm in negotiations to sell the building, which represents the major asset. Mm-hmm. And we are making arrangements to hopefully conclude that, have that asset disposed of, and then proceed with the other amount of money that will still be owed after that asset is disposed of. And fortunately, I have the opportunity to do that. As
for the business loans that came to light from your campaign yesterday, the ones that apparently were not disclosed when you announced your run for governor, I mean, I can see a lot of people understanding a $2,000 oversight or even a $20,000, but $2 million, and this was an oversight.
Well, I think the distinction is the press doesn't seem to understand the difference between somebody who is a stockholder in a corporation mm-hmm. and the corporation itself. These are loans that were made to a corporation of which I am a stockholder. Right. Now, I was a guarantor and am a guarantor on those loans. That was the part that I think was omitted. The fact that the loans exist, this is a successful business, one that is paying those obligations on that loan, and not something that I'm going to be called on to personally be responsible for. Now, many small businesses, many small entrepreneurs own the real estate where their business is located, mm-hmm. but they are stockholders in the corporation. When a corporation borrows money, it may not have the assets to cover it, and you ask for the stockholders to give collateral for it. That is exactly what this case is.
Okay. Do these recent revelations, in your mind, put the meeting that you had with the Revenue Commissioner in the spring of last year in a bit of a different light, in the sense that you've said you wanted to preserve the contract for your auto salvage company because of your concern for the safety of vehicles that were going back on the road, and that's fair enough, but it also appears at least that you could use the money, too.
Well, the auto salvage business is a very successful business, and I did not try to do anything to make sure that it was more successful. My concern was we had a program in place in this state where many people participated in this inspection process. It was important for the safety of the citizens of this state to simply abolish it and go back to a system where no vehicle is being inspected that's being rebuilt for safety purposes. That was a concern I had, and that was the purpose of the meeting, and that was the question I asked. Are we going to go back 20 to 30 years in terms of safety of the public in the state of Georgia? Obviously, that's exactly where we are right now.
All right. Now, where all this is concerned, Roy Barnes says it's a matter of disclosure. What's your response to that?
Well, it has obviously been disclosed. All of it has been disclosed. And
are there any more shoes left to drop?
No, other than shoes on Mr. Barnes's foot. Things that we ought to be asking about him. How is it that he and the Obama administration, in a time like this when Georgians are facing these kinds of problems, could advocate raising taxes on Georgia citizens? My proposal has been to cut taxes on Georgia businesses, on Georgia families, and there's a stark contrast here.
Now, Roy Barnes has asked you to disclose all of your tax return information, and you've declined. Do voters have a right to know that sort of what lies beneath the cover letters of your tax returns?
I think I've disclosed 29 years of my tax returns. I have disclosed 18 years of federal disclosure forms required as a member of Congress. All of those show the assets and they show the liabilities. They show the amount of money I earned, and yes, I didn't earn multi-million dollars as Mr. Barnes did, suing citizens in the state of Georgia and suing Georgia businesses.
But, you know, in the schedules, the sort of devil's in the details when it comes to taxes. I mean, I wouldn't want the whole world looking at mine, but I'm not running for governor. Do you think that that's part of the equation of what people are entitled to see or not?
I think people want to know, how much money did you make? How much taxes did you pay? Are you current in your obligations to paying your taxes? And the answer to that is absolutely. I have revealed my tax returns from the day I first went into elected office. Mr. Barnes's disclosures don't go back to the time he was first elected to public office.
Who's more fiscally conservative, you or Roy Barnes?
Well, absolutely I am. There's no question about it. You look at the policies we've advocated. I've advocated one of conservatism, of cutting taxes on businesses and on families. He's talking about over $2.5 billion of new spending just in education alone. There's not that much money available unless he raises your taxes. So I think it's a very clear distinction here.
Okay, not to belabor the point then, but what do you say to voters who are wondering whether you will be as fiscally conservative with their money when you apparently haven't been, at least recently, with your own?
I believe Georgia voters understand that as a parent, helping your child is probably not only a physically conservative thing to do, it is the right thing to do. This is what I did. I helped my daughter, I helped my son-in-law establish a business. It didn't succeed. There's nothing wrong with that. Georgia voters understand that there is a very big difference between somebody who's willing to step up and help their family, which I believe is the obligation of a parent, and those who make other investments. This was not a speculative, wild investment somewhere. This was an investment in a business that would keep my daughter and my son-in-law in their community working, and I think was the responsible thing to do.
So what happened then? I mean, how did it all get lost? You're right, it happens all the time, but in this particular instance, you're a smart guy, as you say. You've done well in businesses over and over again. What went wrong in this instance?
Same thing that went wrong with hundreds and thousands of other businesses, not only in our state, but all across the country. All of a sudden, the retail market came to an abrupt halt. And there's anything that anybody can do about that, because it's beyond your control. When you've done everything that you can do, you've worked hard, you've had a good business plan, you've paid your debts, and suddenly the marketplace turns on you. These are the kind of things that happen.
Yeah, well, hindsight's easy, obviously, but looking back on it, do you wish you'd kind of not gone as far as you did? in terms of your commitment?
Certainly. You know, in hindsight, if we had known that the economy was going to turn off, we'd have done like many other Georgians. We wouldn't have had the entrepreneurial spirit to begin the process in the first place. But you know, if you're not willing to take risk, if you're not willing to help your family, then I think there's something wrong there. And we've been willing to take those risks. We're willing to pay the consequences of the risks not turning out the way we wanted them to.
I appreciate your willingness to sit down and talk to us. Thank you very much, Congressman.